Welcome back to another special edition of Everything Zen. I'm your host, Mark Sells, and we're continuing our celebration of the series finale of Van Helsing on Syfy, which you can watch on syfy.com. Full episodes from Season 5 and Seasons 1 through 4 are all available on Netflix. Today, we're joined by the amazing Tim Perez, a gifted stage actor who not only stars in Van Helsing's final season, but has been seen in over 60 television shows and films ranging from DC's Legends of Tomorrow to Altered Carbon, Arrow, Aliens vs. Predator, Requiem, Stargate SG-1, and so much more. Here's how our conversation went. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Everything Zen podcast. We're really thrilled to have you with us.
Well, thank you very much. I was just very happy and pleased to come on and to chat with you.
Excellent. Well, I want to preface my first question by saying, from what I've read, your family is pretty extraordinary, very well educated, extremely hardworking. You have lots of siblings. Your parents are educators. My parents were educators as well. What was your experience like growing up? Was there a lot of one-upmanship amongst your siblings?
No, there were just so many of us that all you wanted to do was just find a spot in the house where you could be by yourself. And so much was going on, like every day. Something fantastic was happening that you couldn't possibly sort of like contain it. And so you just wanted to like find a quiet place to just sort of like read a book or read a comic book or do something by yourself, because there was a lot of activity. I grew up with 5 sisters and a little brother, and everybody was just very unique and larger than life. We'll just put it that way.
What did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, since the age of 9, the only thing I've ever wanted to be is an actor. And I really don't know why or how that notion got in my head. But I did watch a lot of television when I was a kid, a lot of black and white TV in the afternoons. And so I saw a lot of old movies from the 30s and the 40s and the 50s that were just reruns at that time. And I got to see the big stars and Kirk Douglas and, Gregory Peck and all these manly men. And I just thought that was that was a super thing. And so I'd always been attracted to this thing, these people who act on celluloid. And so I guess maybe it's unique that I've never really wanted to be anything other than an actor. And so a lot of times people change their careers in life, but I've always had the certitude that this is what I want to do.
Because that's a really interesting setup, because like you were alluding to, when you're in high school and you're going into college, it can be really difficult to choose a major or a profession to pursue. And you went from, at least what I read, you went from like student body president, cross-country champion, captain of the varsity basketball team, in addition to being a star drama student. And what were you still really excited about going into drama, coming out of high school with all of those different activities, different experiences? Because you did go end up at the NYU.
Yes. Well, in my hometown, as a kid, I just dreamed about leaving town. I guess that's very, all kids I think have that sort of. They just have to get out of their town.
Yes, they do.
And I wanted to get out as fast as I could. And I wasn't particularly a very good student in high school. My mom at that time was getting her PhD at Stanford. And so, she wasn't around a lot. My dad wasn't around a lot. So there was a lot of free time for me. And so basically, all I did was, I did sports and whatnot. And I really didn't concentrate on books too much. And I was in plays and things like that. And so I wasn't a great student. So I really didn't even think about university. I knew I was going to go to, say, a junior college where I didn't have to have the grades to get in. But while I was in junior college, that's when I started really getting interested in classes and making good grades. And and whatnot, and thinking about going on to a university. But in the beginning, when I was in my teens, I was kind of not directionless, but I knew I wanted to be an actor. I knew it wasn't going to happen in Fresno. I knew I had to get out of town. I didn't know how that was going to happen. And so I just sort of like was patient and just kept watching movies, kept reading, kept doing plays. And somehow, some way, I knew there was going to be a ticket for me to get out, but I didn't know how. So I just had to have this sense of hope that I had this secret in my head where it might seem like I'm doing nothing. It might seem like I'm going nowhere. But in my mind, I always had a real clear vision of where I was going to go.
And you end up at, a really prestigious school and got your MFA in acting.
Yeah, that was probably one of the hardest things I ever accomplished in my life. Going to school, three-year program. And this is after 4 years of undergraduate. So this is a 3-year graduate program, which is kind of, different if you're an actor, because if you're an actor, you kind of just want to start out young and just kind of get into it. But for me, I wanted to be a stage actor and I wanted to act Shakespeare. And so I wanted to study theater. And so I studied at New York University, and it was just kind of one of the most profound things that I've ever done in my life. It's like a rite of passage from a young person into an adult. It really is quite extraordinary what you go through and the changes that you make, and because you're just working on acting. And I never knew that it was so complex or so infinite, in possibility. And so it just opened up this whole world for me. But with that came a lot of pressure. There was a lot of pressure to perform. And so what that school gave me was they taught me how to seek out and perform well under pressure. And so that was kind of a gift they gave me, because you were under pressure all the time. My hair fell out. I was so nerve-wracked. So it was very difficult, but it was thrilling at the same time. You do a lot of failing in your acting classes, and so eventually you learn what not to do, and then you get on the right track. But it certainly was difficult. To this day, some of my best friends are my fellow students from my class and such, and so we still hang out, we still talk, and that was it's like 1986, and so it's been a while.
Well, you developed
contact. Yeah, so I still have contact with with my alumni association and whatnot, and so it's a nice little network of people that you sort of follow in and out through the years.
It's like
you can always go back to.
It's like a band of brothers and sisters. I mean, you develop thick skin by going through something like that. It makes you more resilient.
Yeah, you do develop thick skin, because I certainly didn't have it, I'll tell you. And to this day, it's still something that I wrestle with, having a thick skin. Because in acting, you really do have to have a thick skin, because all you do is hear no. And so after a while, when you hear no, you just sort of like, well, that means yes. And so you sort of like have to turn things around and create opportunity when there's nothing there, and create hope when there is nothing there. And so you always have to sort of keep looking, being curious, get up in the morning, just hustle for work, do what you can to be creative. And when you do that, you'll find things start opening up for you, and things start happening. So you kind of have to have energy, and you kind of have to make things happen.
Speaking of pressure, I want to talk about your first professional job in drama, opposite F. Murray Abraham in A Midsummer Night's Dream. And some context for our audience: this is in the 80s. This is F. Murray Abraham, fresh off of Scarface, winning an Oscar for Amadeus, The Name of the Rose. And you're also working with a 2-time Tony-winning director, A.J. Antoon. What do you remember about A Midsummer Night's Dream? And did F. Murray Abraham impart any knowledge to you that made an impression?
Well, yeah, he did. I mean, just acting with him every night. It's not like he had to, give me a lecture on acting. I just sort of like was with him, and I could watch him, and I could be with him, and I could feel him, and we could, we were close. And so you just sort of, as a young actor, that's like a dream position to sort of act with someone who has that much experience and that much, is just so brilliant, and you just sort of like, you just try to soak it up and you do your job. That was my first job. Before that job, I was doing children's theater in Pennsylvania. I was doing children's theater in prisons and schools. And so it's quite a difference doing children's theater.
Quite a jump.
All of a sudden, boom! Now you're acting with Edward Abraham. So, but what all that children's theater does, it just gives you opportunity to act. And and when you're acting in prisons, once you can do a prison, you probably can do anywhere. Seriously. And so that got me ready for just anything. And so when I got the opportunity to act with him, I just screamed. I couldn't believe it that I was going to act with him. And so I worked very hard, and I just practiced and practiced and practiced. And so by the time I, got to act with him, I was ready for him. And school made me ready. So I knew how to practice. I knew how to prepare. And even then, there was still a big learning curve to act with him. So the whole thing was an amazing experience. It was like I thought every job was going to be like this experience. The first day I showed up, there were dancers, and they were dancing, and there was conga players, and they were playing congas. The Midsummer Night's Dream was set in Brazil, and so it had this sort of like Brazilian feel to it in music. And so there was music, dancing, Shakespeare, just you name it, and it was just this enormous production. So I thought everything was going to be like that.
You got spoiled.
Yeah, it really was. It really was. And so and in that show, John Leguizamo was in that show. Who else was in that show? Some well-known Carl Laemmle was in that show. Jeffrey Owens from The Cosby Show was in that show.
Wow.
Let's see. Oh, there was a few other people. Gosh, I can't remember. It was so long ago. But yes, it was nerve-wracking. And but it was so thrilling and so much fun. And to this day, I have a relationship with him, and all the fellows that performed in that play were all very, very good friends. The Rude Mechanicals in Midsummer Night's Dream. And we get together. We try to get together maybe once a year. Of course, during the pandemic, we can't see each other. But we try to hang out and be with each other. And I don't know, when you get in these plays, sometimes you get really, really wonderful friendships with the actors that you're acting with. And that's kind of one of the bonuses about being an actor, is that you can really meet some very fun and interesting people in the shows that you do. More than not, I'd say. That's
terrific. That's really great. It's great that you're still in touch with all of these actors after all of these years. It's truly remarkable.
Yeah, and I think that's probably not unique. When you've been doing this for a long time, you do make really wonderful friendships when you're doing shows. Because when you're doing shows, it's like in New York, it's a real kind of 24/7 kind of experience. We are with each other all the time, and at times there's there'll be a matinee, an evening performance, and so it's work, and you sleep and eat with each other really in those dressing rooms. And the public theater at that time had like 4 or 5 other theaters going on. And so all these other plays would be in the green room with us, and they'd be eating their foods. And so you'd have, Puerto Rican, Chinese, Mexican, Jamaican food. So it was a rich, wonderful dressing room, and all these actors that you got to meet from the different shows. And it was a wonderful time really to be around New York and off Broadway.
That's great. Shifting gears a little bit, sometimes, there's a disconnect between what you read and hear on the news versus reality. And we've heard a lot about Hollywood and the entertainment industry as a whole becoming more inclusive. I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences today. Are you seeing a big or little change in diversity so far? Are you seeing more opportunities for Latinos than, say, 5 to 10 years ago? What's the real picture like?
Well, for me, I've been doing this so long that I've seen, there's every 10 years, it's like, the Latinos are going to start, we're going to start casting Latinos in television film. And it sort of kind of dies away and goes away. So right now, there's talk. There is talk, and to be honest, I've been working a lot this year, so that's kind of like validates, there is something possibly happening. There is something opening up where more Latinos are going to be employed acting in television shows and film and whatnot. So that's encouraging. And what I hear from other people also, in that even like say in writing rooms or production rooms, there is active talk of more inclusion to have television shows and films look more like our reality, so yes, I do feel a sense of hope, and when I'm with other actors, I just did a little TV show the other day. It's called 2 Sentence Horror Story, and all the actors in it were Latino, and the director was too, and I was like, whoa, this is crazy. This is a first for me, and so it was very exciting to be around other Latino actors on the set, which is very rare. I don't get to be around too many others. And so it was just great being around them and just talking about, that, we have to make our own projects, but that maybe something is happening. Something seismic is happening, and so I just have my fingers crossed. And if opportunity's there, you just grab it.
Yeah, that's good to hear. That's really good to hear. Starting out, a lot of actors will make appearances on soap operas, doing commercials, playing a victim on CSI. What's been your most memorable early performance and why?
Gosh, well, there's a couple. I think soap operas in New York are great for actors starting out, or just any actor, period, just full-time job. It's great. But in the 80s, there were a lot of soaps in New York, and they were great first jobs. They were great first jobs because you really learned kind of how to act. You could be, I'm sure I was just absolutely awful. And I probably have tape to show it. But they're wonderful vehicles to learn how to act. And so back in the 50s, an actor would have, say, summer theater to learn how to act before they went on Broadway, off Broadway. They could learn and get rid of all their mistakes and their bad habits. And so actors really don't have that opportunity for television film, but soaps are like a great place to just sort of like, kind of learn how to do it, kind of be in the milieu and kind of, so I did this, I think all my children, I was on about 3 months. And I played this young man who was after someone for killing his brother. All I said was, I kill you for killing my brother. And I did that for 3 months. And, it was fantastic. It was fantastic. It was great fun. And that was a gig that I really had a great time. And I learned a lot. So now it wasn't a mystery to me. And this television film thing. And I think, with a little bit of practice, I think I can do it.
Did you ever think that you might have to pursue another career because things just weren't working out? Or was there a turning point where you realized, yeah, I can do this?
Well, there's daily turning points of me doubting myself and wanting to do something else. But to be honest, there is really nothing else that I'm really capable of doing. And so I'm really like captured in this thing I do because it's all really I know how to do. And so that can be a problem. But so there really is no alternative. There was an alternative, say when I was 29, 30, you're going like, well, maybe, God, this is really difficult. I'm not sure I have the guts or the skin to do this. But after a while, you really have to go past the point of no return, at least for me. And so right now I'm really past the point of no return.
You're all in.
So it's the gallows for me. So
yeah. Well, sink or swim. That sort of, it almost creates some desperation. You've got to make it happen. And so
your acting becomes a little bit more about life and death.
Right.
And so when you're sort of on that plane, it becomes very meaningful to you. Even the tiny little walk-on roles that you get become meaningful for you. And so everything is just, you want the experience, you know, and every time you're on set or every time you're around other actors who get to act, it's just, I don't know, it's just, it's incredible. I just can't describe the feeling, you know? Yeah.
You've been in some comic book related series prior to Van Helsing, like Smallville, Arrow, Altered Carbon. How did you get connected to Van Helsing, and what can you tell us about the role you play?
Well, Van Helsing, I've been trying to get on this show for years and years and years, as long as it's been on, and no luck. And so, I don't know, the stars just kind of like realigned, and this role came up. I auditioned for another role in the show, and I didn't get that role. I got another one, and I saw my role Biggs. He's a kind of a soldier. Belongs to a motorcycle gang. And he's a very rough customer who probably had a checkered past. And now he has a mission, and he must kind of be a soldier in a fight for justice and sort of like civilization. And so here you have a guy who you think, looking at him, you wouldn't think, you know, he's, by judging a book by its cover, that he's got anything together, or he's not considerate, he's not kind, or he's, you know, doesn't think about anything other than himself. But really, all he is a person who thinks about others and not himself. And so he's willing to, you know, go to the end to, you know, to help, you know, his world, I guess is what you'd say. I guess I can't say too much, but what I loved about him is I got to be physical, I got to fight, I got to like run and slide, I got to, you know, it was like playing Cowboys and Indians. I'm telling you, it was extreme amount of fun, and it's like you can be 10 again, you know, and it's just absolutely wonderful, you know. It's just this world that is just very vital and very scary too. and you got onto the show just in the nick of time. Oh my God, yes. And I'm so honored to be like in the last couple of episodes, you know, to see how it
tonight.
Yeah, it's incredible, you know, it's incredible. So that's a bit of television history. And so I feel very happy and lucky about that.
It's exciting. I'm excited to watch it. So were you familiar at all with Zenescope's comic Van Helsing, for which the series is based?
No, I wasn't familiar with your comics, but I've gone on and looked at it, and it looks fantastic. I do know the lineage of, you know, the whole Dracula, you know, from, you know, 100 years ago. So I know the story, and I've watched the show a few times, and it's just marvelous. It's like opera without songs, you know.
Yeah.
and so I just. A lot of action, a lot of violence, a lot of justice, and, you know, and a lot of just sort of, I don't know, kind of searching for something, you know.
Very cool. Do you like action adventure stories and physical roles most, or do you like comedy, horror, coming of age? What's your favorite type of genre?
Goodness, I'm not sure I have anything that's favorite. You just stick me in it, and it becomes my favorite. Like that.
I love that.
Well, you know, I just love moving, and I'm getting much too old to be doing that pretty much anymore. So, but I do love moving around. I still can move around a bit, and comedy. I rarely get to do a comedy because I'm such a big guy and I look kind of scary, and so I don't get to usually do comedy. But I think comedy, I think I do my best. I think that's my best. But I rarely get to do it. So when I do it, it's like a love letter to me. I just like anything, really. A good story is what I like. Something that's a page turner, you know, and a character that I can sink my teeth into, or a character that scares the heck out of me, and like, oh my God, how am I going to play this person, you know? And so just trying to find the mystery into the character and to play the role. It's all very exciting. So I would say I'm just addicted to good story.
And what's your connection to the stage today? Are you actively doing more sort of off-Broadway performances, or is it something that you'd like to get back to?
Yes, well, I had a son, and so I sort of stopped doing a lot of plays for years and years and years, and now my son is grown up, and now I'm free, and so I'd like to get back to performing on stage more, and so that's something I want to actively get into. I just love it. There's nothing like it, and when I'm not acting, I write. And so I wrote this play. I wrote a couple plays, but this one play is called L. It's about the Cuban Revolution, Fidel Castro. And I'm going to have a reading of it in August at NYU, New York University's graduate school writers workshop. And so that's like a full-length play about the Cuban Revolution that I'm going to have a read using actors from the graduate school, which will be like kind of an enormous thing. And so, eventually I'd like to possibly get that thing mounted and, perform it myself. So I wrote roles for myself and my friends, and it's a pretty major undertaking of a few years to write and to compose.
But that's going to make you really, really proud, though. I mean, to be, to do that, and then also to be able to present it to your alma mater, it's a cool thing.
I am proud, and I'm nervous too, because they're my peers.
Sure.
And so, I care about what they think. So yeah, it's terrifying is what it is. but I have to do it. Something tells me I have to do it. Everything tells me not to do it. When I look in the mirror, I just see, Tim, are you crazy? Don't do this. Don't do it. But then this other little voice says, well, come on, you can't chicken out. You got to do it. You got to do it. Come on. And so there's this constant battle. And so now people in the writers group are like, okay, you got to read the play. And so now they're kind of like, it's not that they're forcing me, but it's like someone else is saying, Tim, you got to do it. So
you got it. You got it. You're gonna kill it.
Yeah, it's terror, but it's good terror.
It is good terror. I want to connect the dot on that, too, because in addition to Elle, you performed a one-man show, An Evening with Fidel and My Mother, and then you also got to play Fidel Castro in DC's Legends of Tomorrow. For our audience out there that might not be familiar with him, what can you tell us about Fidel Castro, and why is his character and story important to tell?
Fidel Castro passed away a few years ago, and he was the leader, the president of Cuba. To some, he's a dictator. To some, he's a freedom fighter, and so he's probably one of the most controversial people in the Western Hemisphere. And so the character is extremely controversial. The whole Cuban Revolution I found to be really, really fascinating. I learned a lot about my own country and its dealings towards Cuba. And my story focuses on a writer from the New York Times named Herbert Matthews, who interviewed Fidel Castro in the jungle of the Sierra Maestra Mountains when every publication and news story said that he was dead. And so from this article and from this clandestine meeting from Herbert Matthews with Fidel Castro on the top of this mountain, he was basically given a new life. And from this article is how the sort of Cuban Revolution sort of like just went front page New York Times, and he was an international star. And so that's kind of what I focus on in the play. So it's not really I'm not advocating for communism or Fidel or anything like that. It's just a historical depiction of an actual event that happened. So my interest towards Fidel, though, has been for years and years, like at least 20 years. I've been reading and writing and focusing on him. I thought that he'd be a great character to play. For me, at that time, I wasn't really given that many opportunities to play Hamlet, to play Macbeth, to play Richard III, Richard II, Hal, Prince Hal, Henry IV, Part 1 and 2. I wasn't given those roles. And those are the roles that I trained to do. And so because I didn't have those roles, I had to create my own. And so Fidel was like the only sort of like Latino sort of Shakespearean, enormous Shakespearean character that I could focus on and sort of like, approach in a manner that I would say, a Hamlet or a Lear or, a Macbeth, somebody that large, that big in scope.
My last question for you is what current projects do you have in the works? Is there anything that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I'm doing this this Doomsday Mom that's coming out on the 26th on Lifetime. And in this film, in this movie, I'm playing the lead detective who cracks the case. And it's the craziest story that I've ever sort of, it's a story that you can't even, it's stranger than fiction. You can't even make it up. And that's on Saturday on Lifetime on the, I think it's, what is it? Yeah, Lifetime channel. Yeah.
That's great. I'm going to have to set my DVR.
Yes, please do.
And check it out.
I'm very different. I'm very different than Fidel. I'm very different than the character I play on Van Helsing. And so it's really interesting where I get to play like guys who, I don't play myself. I get to play characters, so I enjoy that a lot.
Tim, thank you so much for joining us.
This has been great. Thank you for having me.